Good afternoon, everybody. It's Monday, June 12th. This is Nate Abbott from Abbott Business Networks, and this is a new discussion. The question, mobile device makers, are they guilty of murder? Okay, so this is referencing a Wired magazine article Friday. Apple's don't disturb while driving mode is a blunt answer to a nuanced problem. And they cite this statistic. 3,477 people died and 391,000 were injured by distracted driving in 2015. Okay. So I want you to think of those numbers. That's a good-sized concert hall of deaths, and that's a fairly decent-sized city of injuries. And I want you to think about terrorist attacks in Paris, in Boston, in any point in the world that you like. And I want you to think of how you think of those things. And then I want you to think about that 2015 distracted driving statistic. So who are the guilty parties? Well, we're all responsible for all our own activities, but if we consider the companies that created the environment in which a lot of this distraction was created, we're going to have to name some names. Apple is going to be the first name that I name. Microsoft/Nokia can't be left out, although they're fading in the rearview mirror at this stage. So next would be Samsung, Motorola, creator of the Droid and the Moto X. I have more to say. They have a little bit of a get out of jail free card from me. LG, HTC, Blackberry, Huawei. There's other makers. They all profit from these smart devices, and all of them, and I put Apple at the top of the list because Apple created this situation in 2008 by creating the iPhone. The iPhone was a complete transformation of our interaction with smartphones. We went from having tactile keyboards to keyboards that had to be looked at in order to be operated. So I could keep my eyes firmly on the road and text with one hand from a Blackberry. Did that make it right? Does that make it proper? No. Is it a lot safer than trying to text with an iPhone while driving? Yes. First of all, let's get something square. I don't believe anyone should text and drive. That is, operate manually their phone and read texts and reply to them with their fingers and their eyes while driving. This is one of the most dangerous things that a human being can do. And I'm just gonna hold off from freaking out about it because it's freak-worthy if you think about it. So Wired's title is Apple's Don't Disturb While Driving Mode is a blunt answer to a nuanced problem. So iPhone comes out in 2008. Apple includes a feature in the iPhone to do something about distracted driving in 2017. Does that seem maybe a little late? I don't know. I think so. Is Apple's response adequate? Well, I'll tell you, I made it a priority to buy a phone that had good voice response because I'm realistic in understanding that we're going to interact with the things in our car, whatever the law states, whatever advice we get, whatever you listen to from me, you're going to do what you want to do to get through your day in a car. And most people, I actually don't know, a significant number of people behave irresponsibly, that the statistics are shifting in a negative direction. They're trending negatively in terms of traffic fatalities and traffic injuries. And there's no doubt it's because of the smartphone. So, what's my perspective? I had a Motorola phone built into my Saturn SL2 in 1992. So that was my work mobile phone, which was could not be removed from the car. It was a cell phone that was built into the car. The handset was wired to a piece that was bolted onto an arm that was bolted onto the car, and you couldn't take it out. So that was my phone in the car. Was it distracting? Yeah. Was it almost all voice? Yeah. All I had to do is press the answer button, and I could press the stop button to hang up. Would I dial? Yeah. I'd look down and dial. Was that not good? Not great. Did I have speed dial? Yes. Was there any voice response to the system? Not at all. Was it a great productivity tool? Yes. Was I encouraged to use this? Absolutely. But that's 1992. I mean, that's like a century ago. So fast forward to the present. I've had a pager or a cell phone in my car for 30 years. Oh, less than 30 years, 25 years, let's say. And so it's not, the question is not, will we be distracted in the car? Because frankly, I've laid down a motorcycle because I got distracted with a radio. There are other distractions in your vehicle. We're not going to get to zero. And I think we would be a lot better off if we admitted that there's going to be distractions. It's not eliminating one distraction or another distraction. My belief is making the distractions as unintrusive as possible and training drivers to respond accordingly, to be responsible, to understand that they're in a distracted environment and there's a need to focus. And it's not trivial. It's not easy. I just feel like people are getting a lot worse at driving, and it's a lot more difficult to drive because of the distraction environment. All right, a little bit more about devices. I went for Motorola phones, the Moto X phones, when they first were released. I believe it was 3 years ago. I have had the Moto X, the Moto X second generation, and the Moto X Pure. Why did I buy those phones? I bought those phones because they had a Moto app that Motorola put in them. And this was largely done when Motorola was owned by Google. For a brief period of time, Motorola had been its own company, making lots of different products. Then it was split up, and the company that made radios and radio equipment split off from the mobile phone division. The mobile phone division was sold to Google. Google idealistically created these phones that actually addressed this problem, but they didn't take over the market. They didn't take over mind share, because Apple owns all of that mind share. Google tried. They bought a company and they created a product to try and address this question, and they put a lot of tech into it, a lot of thought, and it actually was effective. It worked, except the phones were just not strong enough to do the job. A, the battery life was bad because there was so much going on the phone that they tended to die. B, it was elaborate, and so there was a lag in the response time that was really not tolerable a lot of the time. And there was an error rate that was too high. So this technology was a really good effort. It was beautifully designed. It just didn't have the device to thrive on. And then Google saw, okay, there wasn't really a winning end game for this process, and they very smartly sold that entire division to Lenovo. So Lenovo's got Motorola now, and they're producing products, and they're interesting, and they have Snap-on pieces. But I did my bit. I paid my dues, and I bought a Google Pixel XL because I realized that Google had at least taken the step to try and solve the problem and had made really heartfelt, deep engineering strides to try and fix the issue, and they had been largely successful. But now they were commissioning really a successor generation to what were known as the Nexus phones. I don't need to go into that this podcast, in this netcast, but I have the Google Pixel XL. It's the most satisfying phone that I've had. This is not an advertisement for phones. I'm just telling you that there is kind of a derivative child technology of the Moto app, and it exists in the Pixel XL phone and the Pixel phone. And you turn it on, and it handles responses quite nicely, and it limits what you do with the phone. It creates a very simple interface, so there's only big buttons on the phone, and really you can train yourself to say, if it's not easy to do on the phone, I'm just not going to do it. Because you can answer an important text, and let's face it, some texts are important. You know, it's a girl, right? That's an important text. You're not going to interrupt your life. We've proven we won't do that. Let's see, I wrote some notes in here. I find it somewhat amazing that we don't put a higher value on how well our products protect our safety. But you only have to look at the history of the automobile to understand that we as a species don't focus on safety. We focus on sex, and that's great. I'm happy. It's just we could do both. We really could have sex and safety, but we just choose sex, and that's who we are. So great. Okay. So Apple, I think late to the party, and here Wired Magazine is casting shade on the effort, really kind of implying that it's unrealistic, and a lot of opportunities to opt out of it. It's a little bit, it's a blunt object. It's just, no, you're not gonna use this phone. Well, look, do you need an app that shuts most of the functions of the phone down when you could shut all the functions of the phone down with a power switch? There is the aspect that it will let through important context and important texts, but it doesn't really say. I really don't see Siri as being nearly as good as OK Google, the Google voice response. I mean, that's one of the things that I count on. Oh, my phone heard me. This happens all the time, so cancel. Very good. Okay, so last thought. I have a radical thought, and that is that Microsoft is culpable for the insecurity of 90% of the world's computers because they claim that their customers told them that what they wanted were features and performance and not security. I feel like that was a short-sighted view. I think they've come around. I think they've changed as a company. I think Windows 10 is fundamentally a more secure operating system. That's a whole other podcast. I'll take that up later. I don't really want to argue with anybody. I know it's true, regardless of any other complaints that people may have about Windows 10. I don't have any. I think it's terrific, and I like I said, 30 years. I evaluate Windows very harshly. I think Windows 2000 was the first acceptable version of Windows. That's my personal assessment. And I'm just going to stop with Windows. This is about mobility and about distraction and about safety. Apple really owns this. Apple introduced the iPhone. Apple took away the tactile keyboard and put in the touch keyboard. Touch depends. You really cannot be sure what you're typing if you don't look at the touch interface. And doing that while you're driving is really tempting fate, and it's dangerous. So I hope we'll all take this to heart. I think we all have a responsibility in the issue. I think it's valid to say that it's up to the driver to ensure their own safety. I think that's true. I just think there's a happy medium. I mean, the Corvair is a very dangerous automobile, and legal action was taken against General Motors because of how dangerous that car was. I think mainly it was that people drove the Corvair without knowing how dangerous it was. And I think there are too many people who are not really told up front how dangerous it is. to get into your car and drive with a touch interface smartphone and expect to use it while you're driving. So, okay. Thank you very much for listening. Go find the Wired magazine article and give it a read. I think you should look at the Pixel phone if you're interested in this issue. And I would say wherever you get your wireless smartphone technology, I would go ask that vendor what they can do to protect you while you're in your car and see what they say. I'm betting most of them don't have much to say, to be honest with you, on that topic. But I suspect it goes back to the fact that a lot of us are not asking that question first when we walk in. The numbers I cited earlier, I think there's got to be some family members and some friends and relatives who know people who've either lost a relative or they know a relative who's been badly injured and they know it was because of distracted driving. The news stories are dramatic enough, and I guess we believe it won't happen to us. So don't let it happen to you, and take it to heart. Protect yourself. It's your job. That's clear. Thanks again for listening. I'm going to put these up from time to time. And it's Nate Abbott. This is an addendum to the last posting about mobile safety. And it's just a quick amendment to my statements about Siri. I gave up on Siri 4 years ago because Siri really was, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it was a pain in the ass 4 or 5 years ago. It's been pointed out to me by some Apple users that Siri is much better. And I knew this. So I think my experience of Siri is a little bit tainted by my early experience with that service. I think a lot of people are actually in my boat, though. I think a lot of people have quit on Siri who might find that they would be more successful with it. My spouse is one who has an iPhone 6 S Plus, and she has success using Siri in mobile situations, and it does protect her from interacting with the phone in an unsafe way. So I have to presume that the new service on Windows 7 will be layered on top of an improved Siri, so it's likely to be a good solution and valid. I think the other points about Apple's lack of emphasis on this and the time it has taken them to basically catch up with what other vendors have done is still valid, and I stand by that statement. But Siri's not as bad as I made it out to be, apparently. Thanks.